Welcome back. A reminder of oil prices right here, right now. Markets have been moving higher here, both Brent and WTI in focus, with WTI better by almost 3% at 62.57. Brent still sub 65 USD, but also stronger by about 2.5% this Monday session. All of this coming after OPEC Plus pushed through a third consecutive production increase at the weekend. This latest decision, an additional 411,000 barrels a day starting next month, comes amid already falling prices and what was reported to be divisions within the alliance. Reports today suggest that Russia, Oman and Algeria urged Saudi Arabia to hold output steady in July to wait and assess the impact of earlier increases. I've put the question to OPEC officials this morning who confirmed that a pause was indeed part of the conversation, but they stressed this was not a resistance and an output increase was decided anyway. So is it about discipline, punishing quota cheats like Iraq and Kazakhstan? Is it about market share, reclaiming ground from US shale and non-OPEC output? Or is politics at play here, a nod to President Trump after his recent Gulf tour? Well, officials I've spoken to have also pushed back on that idea. The next OPEC Plus meeting is set for July 6, when the alliance will decide on production levels for August. Let's unpack all of this with Amrita Sen. She's the founder and director of research at Energy Aspects, live for us in Geneva this morning. Amrita, 3 consecutive hikes, May, June, July. The question is, does this market need more oil? And to another point, how are traders responding? Good morning.
Good morning. I'd say, look, the right here, right now, in terms of oil markets, it is very, very strong. If you've looked at the curve, we remain backwardated for the most part across all the benchmarks, a clear sign that inventories are very low. Across the first half of the year, we've basically built about 500,000 barrels per day. That is what we used to build in between like 2010 and 2019 versus the 2020 to 2024 average of 1.3 million barrels per day. So it's less than half of the last 5 years we've seen. Even if you strip kind of the COVID effects out of it, it's still lower than what we've seen in the last few years. So markets are tight. That's why the curves remain backwardated. So OPEC can actually add barrels right now. Also, remember, we're not actually seeing exports go up by as much as production because, I mean, you know it, the summer is on. We've got, Hajj as well in Saudi Arabia. So we've actually got exports being pretty steady. So I think this was priced in. We've been calling for a 3x this month. And I think the traders, at least whoever I've spoken with, will tell me that this was priced in, which is why I think we are rallying this morning. Of course, there's Canadian wildfire risks as well to production, Libya. So there's a lot of supply risks out there.
Amrita, I was hitting the phones this morning and speaking to OPEC officials. I was told that Russia and some others inside the group actually suggested a pause. They wanted to wait and assess the impact of the previous increases. But of course, as you know, that's not what was ultimately decided here. It's interesting because Russia's backing of this strategy is really key. Of course, key to cohesion in the group, but also key to supply because Russia is such a significant producer. So what did you make of this case for a pause, and why do you think that wasn't the track that OPEC ultimately took here?
I mean, I thought it was a very interesting, bit of nugget that Russia did ask for a pause, but I'm not surprised. If you look at where Urals has been trading in the low 50s, that's clearly a price where Russia is going to be hurting financially with everything that's going on in Russia, Ukraine. But more importantly, if you look at Russian production, because they have high water cuts, we've seen this during COVID as well. When they shut in production, it is extremely difficult for them from the older fields to actually return production. We already saw the first glimpse in April. They were only able to increase by 10,000 barrels per day. We strongly suspect that they will not be able to increase by the amount that their quotas are going up. The newer fields kind of in the Arctic, which Gazprom Neft operate, those will be fine, but Rosneft's fields will struggle. I think that's essentially the game they're playing, right? Essentially saying, look, why don't we pause? Because if you can't, if they can't increase production, by the amount that they are meant to, then of course, that's why they're calling for a little bit of a pause.
Right. And Amrita, so much of the narrative right now is, of course, about compliance. We know that countries like Iraq and Kazakhstan have been overproducing. That's an issue for the group because internal cohesion, as I mentioned, is really key here. How effective do you think this strategy is in actually reining in those non-compliant members?
I think compliance is going to start to improve at these price levels. Lower the price, better the compliance. I think that's fair to say. But I think the challenge still remains Kazakhstan, right? They have shown no signs whatsoever. The others, yes, I think the improvement is gradual, but it's definitely happening. Kazakhstan's production remains extremely high with the Tengiz field coming online earlier. And I think comments from their minister don't fill me with a lot of confidence, right? I mean, he is talking about that Kazakhstan will continue to produce at its maximum capacity. You have all these foreign companies, and I think that's where they will have to undertake maintenance. There's a 2-week maintenance coming up. That's how in the past they have done their compliance. I think this year, if they are to comply, maintenance will have to be heavier than usual.